This is my family. We've got little Quinn, who's 4 years old. We've got little Luther, who's just under 2 when this photo was taken. And I don't know how we can change it, but Luther always seems to have this pose in the photos. He always looks a little bit gormless. I think that's what he takes after me. This was taken about September last year. It was a Thursday evening, and myself and my family were getting ready to go over to our local supermarket to do the family shop. We do it every week on a Thursday evening, and I always dread it. I spend my week building up to that time. I know as soon as I get in the car, we're driving down the road. We only live about a mile away from the supermarket, but we drive there because who carries shopping anymore? We pull into the car park, and all of a sudden I know it's going to be car park warfare. You must have been there. You must know what I'm talking about. You pull into the car park, and your wife or partner who is driving the car has this compulsion to get the closest possible parking space to the front door of the shop. If you've got kids in the car as well, it gets even worse, because then you've got the parent and child spots. And if somebody pulls into a parent and child spot without children in their car, oh my God. So we usually have this little battle to and fro. I like to park as far away from the shop as possible because I know I can get a car parking space, whereas my wife will have a 10-minute round trip of going around the car park. I want you to consider the thought process here. What we're doing within that small kind of example of life and day-to-day life is minimizing the physical activity that we have to deal with. Where I'm thinking from is that I'm happy to walk that extra 100 meters to the shop. I'm happy to try and carry the shopping all the way back to the car with 2 screaming kids. And I think the modern persona is to try and minimize as much physical activity from day-to-day life as we can. The idea of progress in the modern day often involves regressive physical activity. And I wanted to bring up that idea for you guys today as something to consider and offer a few kind of ideas around how we can avoid this problem of lack of physical activity in day-to-day life. But I want to take just a moment to think about it in the context of evolution of our species. Our species and us as people evolved to what we'd recognize as people about 70,000 years ago. We've got similar mentality, similar physicality as those people in that time frame. Yeah? At that time, we were hunter-gatherers, we were nomadic, and physical activity in day-to-day life was inherent. It was in everything we had to do, and we couldn't get away from it if we wanted to live. Yeah? About 15,000 years ago, we decided, right, we're going to stay put where we are, and we're going to start growing our food in a field, or rearing our animals for food. And our physical activity diminished a little bit, but we were still really heavily active, having to feed ourselves, having to take advantage of the things that are around us. Bring it forward another step to our kind of grandparents' era, and we could go and buy our shopping. Maybe a little bit before that as well. But they had to walk to the shops. Now we drive. And actually, the way that my wife and I have solved the problem of car park warfare is we just order online now. So we've taken that next step on from having so much physical activity in our day-to-day life to sitting on the sofa and just ordering our food online. What I want to kind of talk around today is how physical activity, because of that removal from day-to-day life, has become really a formal process. Nowadays, we don't get physically active in our day-to-day life. We have to take certain chunks of time out of our week to go and be physically active. We have to go to the gym, or we have to go and exercise, although exercising is what we're doing every day, every second, moving around. And I think the idea now of exercise is going and spending time on that hamster wheel at the gym, or sitting down on the bike in the gym and just watching TV. And that's how we exercise. And I think I want to kind of deviate away from that. And I want to ask you or start to think about how can we reintegrate physical activity into our day-to-day life to save ourselves from the problems that lack of physical activity builds. As a species, really, we've kind of climbed up a mountain in terms of progress. From 70,000 years ago to now, there's a huge change in terms of the way that we operate in our day-to-day life. Particularly in the last 20 years since the dot-com boom and the time where we've been able to do everything we need to do online without activity, we've kind of stepped up to the edge of that cliff on our mountain, and we're kind of deciding whether we want to jump off at the moment. Really, we're living longer. All of the statistics currently throughout the UK, throughout the world, demonstrate that we're living a longer life. But really, what does that life look like? We're living a longer life, but we're spending more time inactive and we're spending more time frail at the end of our life trying to struggle on. And what I want to try and promote, you guys, is the idea of being physically active to extend the quality of your life. Just a couple of statistics off of the World Health Organization. I don't want to make this a talk about body weight and obesity, because everybody gets that rammed down their throat all the time, and I think we're really desensitized to it nowadays, but it is a big problem. Just in that last kind of generation or two of our lifespan, the world population has gone from kind of 20% of people being overweight right up to 40% of people being overweight in this world. That's including everybody. If we just look at the economically developed countries, we're looking at closer to 70% of people in the modern day as being classified as medically overweight. Now, the reason that I wanted to bring that up is because of the perception that that causes. So, because the majority of our environment is surrounded by people who are overweight, I'm overweight, and we, in terms of a medical point of view, see everything in that way all the time. It becomes our normal. And really, it's not normal. Really, we should be operating 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 years ago in terms of physical activity. And I think that perception that's guided by our environment is a really important thought process to have, because that's how our body operates. Like we were talking about, like Joel mentioned earlier on, when we're in our comfort zone, we stay comfortable. Our body stays on a flat line, and really what we're like is a rolling stone. If our level of activity and our environment drops down, our body follows it down like a rolling stone. If our body or our level of physical activity increases in our environment, our body drives itself up the hill. It's tough work, but we become more physically able. And I think it's those challenges of physical ability that are really important to try and add in. But what I want to tell you guys is that your bodies are amazing. Not just your bodies in general, you specifically, your body is fantastic. It's made up of a number of different complex systems, so complex that we haven't ever seen anything even close to the same complexity level as your own body that you own. I just want you to take a minute to think about that. Everything in your entire life, the entire internet, the entire universe, nothing compares to the complexity that you own right underneath your clothes. It's like a computer. We put stuff in and we get an output back out in general. The only difference is that this computer is able to adapt to its day-to-day environment and life. Now, once we invent a computer that can do that, then maybe we're in trouble. But at the moment, we're doing really well. The point is, it's generally predictable. So I want to ask everybody, how many of you deal with day-to-day aches and pains or niggles? That lower back pain, raise your hand. Those sore knees. Yeah, it's a really common problem. From my position as a sports scientist, strength and conditioning coach, working with athletes and the general public, there's absolutely no reason why anybody should have to deal with ongoing aches and pains and niggles unless there's a chronic underpinning. There's always a reason why, and we can always find it. The way that the body adapts, it follows a natural curve. And this will be intuitive to you guys. It's called supercompensation theory, but this will be intuitive, and you'll all know that this happens within your body. You start on that straight line where your body likes to be, that position where it doesn't change. And you do some exercise or you do some physical activity, and all of what happens, you feel fatigued, you feel tired, and your energy levels and output go down. Then your body starts to adapt. It realizes that this stimulus from its environment has attacked it, and it starts to change and become better so that that doesn't happen in the future. We improve and we get above our line. What we want to try and do is make the physical stimulus of activity happen when we're above that line. So the frequency that we're working at in terms of our physical activity is always at that point where our body's just that little bit better. And then once we do that again and again and again, we get that little bit better again and again and again. And it only has to be a small amount. But it works in the reverse. If we do a small amount of things really badly, again and again and again and again, it's that downward spiral. It's like a big hole. This crater in South China was created through the frequent low-intensity activity of water. Now, it's 120 million cubic meters, the volume of that is 120 million cubic meters. Now, that's a massive number. It was too big for me, so I had to put it into context for me. Now, I know there's a lot of students in the room, so I converted it into alcohol consumption for you guys. And if we filled this entire crater with booze, it would be enough to fulfill the world's usage of alcohol for 7.5 years. And that was created by the steady, slow, repetitive, low-intensity forces of water. And what I want to try and give you guys is the idea that we can do that in our own lives with our own physicality, with the slow, steady, frequent stimulus of small amounts of physical activity. The current stimulus we deal with is sitting in a car, or sitting at our desk doing work, or sitting at home, or playing on our phone, positions that are all closing us down and returning us into that fetal position that we started life in, strengthening the muscles down the front of our body, and maybe neglecting the muscles down the back of our body. But what if we flip this on its head? What happens if we do that little bit of physical activity every day that just helps build towards a more consistent physically able life? We earn ourselves a better quality of life for longer. We can control the way our body and have a more deep, meaningful relationship with our body, understand how it works. It gives us a better chance to remain disease-free for longer in our life. In the modern day, the knowledge is everywhere. Most of the knowledge that I draw on in my professional work is 50 or 60 years old. The fundamental, basic, simple things. That's different to the way that fitness is marketed nowadays. It's always secrets provided by gurus. And really, the information is everywhere. Now, I just want to end the talk with a little bit of a physical example for you guys, because I'm a sports person. I couldn't get away with not getting you guys active. So what I'd like to do is just show you the difference and show you the kinds of positions that we'd be facing. So if everybody stands up, all I'd like you to do is try and touch your knees 6 times, but I want you to look at everybody else in the room as they do it and remember the body positions that you're seeing. So nice and quick, just touch your knees 6 times, look around, see what kind of body positions you're seeing. Hopefully we're starting to recognize one of my major coaching rules is if it looks pretty, it's probably right. If it looks like a car crash, it's probably a car crash. What we're starting to see there is a lot of reliance on that frontal musculature, that arch back and that strain, which is where those aches and pains come from. If we can keep those positions straight and strong, the pain goes away and we're able to control it. Now what I'd like you to do is I'm going to show you what it feels like for those back muscles to feel like they're working. I'd like you to sit back down in your chair, but first, I want you to raise your hands up. Sorry if I untuck here. Raise your hands up over your head as high as you can, and they have to stay behind your head, and then sit back down on that chair, keeping your hands back. Now, hopefully, everybody felt those muscles throughout their back working hard to try and stabilize their posture. We think about these issues as social problems. They are social problems, but only because we as individuals don't take responsibility for our own situation. That should be really promising for you guys because it means that you have full control and it's not a social issue, it's something that you can manage. I want to encourage you to take the first step today, literally, and take control of your body, your health, and your life. Thank you.